All right, we are now live. Thank you all for joining us. It looks like I'm still learning how this all works, so I'm trying to see how many people we have on. But welcome for whoever you are. It looks like. Oh, wow, now it's loud. Sorry. As you all can tell, this is my second ever live on YouTube, so I'm still learning the ropes. But Shalise is here today to help me grasp this new world of making content. So thank you, Shalise, for collaborating today.
Hey, thank you. We were excited to go live with you. We've done a few collabs in the past, and your channel has skyrocketed way past ours, which I'm just like so happy for you because you are clearly
Thank
doing
you. Oh.
something right. People are resonating with your content, and I love how much attention you are getting on all the ways that Mormonism is a little iffy and wrong and straight out lying to its members. So I am here for it, especially as an ex-Mormon myself. And I'm always here to support other content creators. So yes, I'm dragging you into the live streams. And I'm like, Alyssa, we can do this together.
I know.
So
I need Shalise to give me the pep talk so that I can get it, so I can do it, because it's just, I don't know, it shouldn't be so much scarier, but it definitely does feel a bit intimidating to do something live. So thank you. And Shalise, if you guys haven't heard of her channel, it's called Cults to Consciousness, and they've been doing a whole series on Mormons and interviewing ex-Mormons and FLDS, ex-FLDS people. So the way this live is going to work is that for the first 45 minutes, we're over here on my channel, and then we're going to do a quick redirect, and you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to press or click anything. We'll pop back up over on her channel, so stick around for that. So we're going to kind of do be on both channels, essentially.
Yep, that's it.
All right, and our topic for the day is everyone's favorite topic, which is masturbation. The way this live got set up is actually that on the ex-Mormon subreddit, 13 days ago, there was an absolutely wild document that I'd never seen before. And the poster also said, somehow I've never seen this gem before. And it is a multi-page document that is a guide to self-control. And it's all the steps that you need in order to learn how to make sure that you don't masturbate. And some of these get so specific that it reads almost like it's a piece of comedy or satire or something, because it's honestly difficult to believe that it's real.
Yeah. And this is written by Marky Peterson, one of the 12 apostles. He was one of the 12 apostles. And I was trying to find an exact date, but it looks like it came out around 1995, just for context of where we're at in time here. And I have another quote of something that came out in 81. Maybe we could start with this because it's like, it just shows you how intense it is. And before we get into the document that he also wrote, but they were giving this to missionaries, and it did say to both men and women. It says, in very severe cases, it may be necessary to tie a hand to the bed frame with a tie in order that the habit of masturbating in a semi-sleep condition can be broken. This can also be accomplished by wearing several layers of clothing, which would be difficult to remove while half asleep. So he's like, straight up bondage yourself so that you don't accidentally do it in your sleep. So
it's crazy that Mormons, in an attempt to not masturbate, somehow get more kinky.
It's so true.
It's like, seriously, you're tying yourself to the bed?
Yeah.
There has to be a better way.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're going to go over today. And honestly, we were both talking as we were going through this document. It is so detailed that in my notes, I was like, okay, I'm just going to highlight the ones that we want to cover. There's so much to talk about here. Every single one. I was like, we got to cover it. There are just too many gems that we need to discuss. And we also want your opinions, which is why we're doing this live. We want you guys to chime in on your thoughts and opinions. And if you remember hearing this rhetoric growing up, if you grew up in the LDS church as well.
Yeah, and I linked it in the stream. I was trying to figure out how to pin it, but hopefully if you scroll, you guys can see it in the chat so that you can go and click through and read through with us. Yeah, so it's from an apostle named Mark E. Peterson, who was a member of the 12 apostles. If you're not familiar, Mormons believe in creating the original church that Jesus instituted. So since Jesus had 12 apostles, they have 12 apostles and the prophet. And so this is, so basically Mark E. Peterson, as a member of the 12 apostles, was as high up as you can get before just basically being prophet. So he's high up. And I actually Googled Mark E. Peterson, and he has a ton of absolutely crazy quotes about interracial marriage being evil. So
yep. Got into that. I was like, wow, that's a stream for another day.
Yeah, a lot of deep cuts with this guy.
Yes.
So should we just read through it, or should we
so.
just jump in?
I mean, we're probably going to not read every single little bit because you guys are going to fall asleep, maybe. But yeah, also the language is important. I think just the way they phrase certain things is important. So I didn't want to just sit and summarize everything, because I think the way that they're presenting it, especially to the youth, is important to recognize the guilting, shaming tactics. Because, and we can get into this at whatever point, we are not against if someone chooses not to participate in masturbation. We're not saying like, go get your rocks off every day, all day, like go do your thing. We want people to be able to choose what they want to be able to do without feeling guilt or ashamed, because it is part of being human, having those sexual urges, those sexual desires. It's a normative part about being human. We've talked to sex therapists, even former Mormon. They were a Mormon sex therapist, Natasha Alfer, who was excommunicated for choosing to present factual information to her clients instead of losing her license for presenting incorrect information to her clients about masturbation. So, there is research on this, but the whole point of this is to point out the ways in which they are actively shaming and putting so much guilt on these young kids, especially for this normative practice. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more about removing the stigma around a lot of these things, and stigma either way. If you choose to have kids, if you choose not to have kids, there shouldn't be a stigma associated with either of those choices. And I think the same thing goes for masturbation, where there are asexual people, there are people who really enjoy it, there are people who could take it or leave it, so it's not really necessarily about promoting a certain ideology as much as destigmatizing. What'd you say?
I said to do or not to do. That's not the question.
It is not the question. So yes, I'll start just by reading, let's see. So I'll start by reading the intro.
Okay.
Should I try a general authority voice?
Oh my gosh, please.
Because I have to read this in my mind in my old man voice. So be assured that you can be cured of your okay, I'll read it normally. Be assured that you can be cured of your difficulty. Many have been, both male and female, and you can be also if you determine that it must be so. Determine is the first step. So let's read through. This is Guide to Self-Control, step number 1. Never touch the intimate parts of your body except during normal toilet processes. Avoid being alone as much as possible. Find good company and stay in this good company. So make sure your hands are, fold them in prayer, hold them above your head, but make sure, I love that he just also refers to it as normal toilet processes, because that's like the opposite of just referring to it in the normal way.
Yeah. I think the thing that sticks out with this one, especially for it being the number one thing, is it makes you afraid of yourself. Like I can't trust myself to be alone with myself, even if I'm just going to the bathroom. And I feel like that's a major problem, making people afraid of their own bodies. And we're going to get into more of that too.
Do you want to read the next notable quote?
Popcorn to me. If you are associated with other persons having the same problem, you must break off their friendship. You can't even be friends with people. Also, who's having these conversations as a friend? I mean, maybe, but not always. Never associate with other people having the same weakness. So again, they're dehumanizing you as being weak if you're doing this thing. Don't suppose that the two of you will quit together. You never will. Also, it's like, are we doing this? Are we having co-masturbation sessions? It's just very interesting.
We're also going to read in this live, we'll read some quotes from miracle forgiveness, and he refers to how masturbation often devolves into mutual masturbation.
Right.
And there seems to be this rhetoric in the church around this idea that masturbation always leads to co-masturbation. And it feels like they're talking from personal experience, honestly. All the 12 apostles, they're getting together, they're like, speaking from personal experience, it's very easy for things to devolve into co-masturbation. And it's almost like strange to hear them speak to things this specifically, because it sounds like they know what they're talking about too much.
Well, and also I think it could be seen as a loophole because even if you're married, you're not supposed to masturbate. It's considered a sin. But if your partner's doing it to you, then it's fine. So is that it's like a loophole? Like, well, if I touch you and you touch me, then it doesn't count as masturbation because I'm not doing it to myself and it's fine and it's a marital practice. But if I'm alone, my sexuality doesn't belong to me.
Yeah, I know. I think I also saw on the ex-Mormon subreddit someone saying that they were having sex with their partner within a Mormon marriage, which is supposed to be okay. And then because one person didn't finish, they're like, well, do you mind if I finish myself? And then their spouse stopped speaking to them and like iced them out and was really angry. And it's very interesting that you're only allowed to experience this within the realm of someone else.
Yes.
If you're even married, you're faithful within the marriage, you've got all the cards right, but even still within that, touching yourself within marriage is still not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it keeps going. Just to be in their presence will keep your problem foremost in your mind. As if I'm sitting next to a friend being like, oh my gosh, she masturbates. Oh my gosh, now I want to masturbate. Like, what? That's not how it works.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like your very presence reminds me of my masturbation
My
disease.
desire.
It's like,
But wait, it gets worse. Number 3.
okay, number three. Number 3, when you bathe, do not admire yourself in a mirror, which is the quote I used for the thumbnail because
Uh-huh.
so absurd. Never stay in the bath more than 5 or 6 minutes. So set a timer, everybody. Just long enough to bathe and dry and dress, and then get out of the bathroom into a room where you will have some member of your family present.
So
It's
much to
funny,
unpack.
but it actually is sad because you know that someone got this, like many people got this document and they're annotating it, they're internalizing it, they're setting a timer in the bathroom, they're sprinting out of the bathroom, getting their clothes on. And,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds so absurd reading it from, looking in. But when you're in it, this feels like scripture.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like good advice when you're so terrified of making this mistake. It's like, oh, wow, thank you. Another thing that I hadn't considered, probably because you hadn't considered it. It probably wasn't an issue until they present it as an issue. And now, again, you're afraid of your own body. You're afraid to just be in your own presence if you don't have clothes on. It's just, it, it's like taking scrupulosity to a whole new level, this religious OCD of freaking out about every single little thing because they've put that idea into your head.
Yeah, it's one thing I really liked about Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, because she really goes into her OCD and scrupulosity and how much the church magnified it by feeling like she really had a lot of little OCD practices, essentially, where she's, spinning in circles, or she's touching different parts of her body, or when she's using the restroom, she's washing her hands a certain number of times. And I think this, processes of the guide where there's multiple steps, it really can feed into that part of your brain that's like, if I just do these different things, I'm good and worthy, and this is my path to freedom. But they're really just taking something that is quite normal and creating this mindset that is very demonizing to someone's own just typical body and adolescent experience.
Exactly. 100%. And so the next one is when in bed, if that's where you have your most problems, dress yourself for the night so securely that you cannot easily touch your vital parts. This chastity belt they literally want you to wear at night in bed. So it would be difficult and time consuming for you to remove these clothes. By the time you started to remove your clothes, you'd come to your senses and the temptation would leave you. So I remember I've talked to men who would triple knot their pajama pants and tie them super, super tight because they were afraid that they might just wake up to themselves doing it because of this stuff that's coming out and being propagated.
It's like the level of, I mean, I also I've talked recently on my channel, I was looking for the book, but about the book Visions of Glory. Oh, it's right here. And um I'm pretty sure in this book it even talks about how if you masturbate, you are allowing yourself to, or any sexual sin, really any sin, will make it so that you can get possessed by devils. And it has all of these passages where it talks about how there's one in particular where a man talks about he sees a vision of a man who's watching porn, and then as the man is watching porn, in the vision he sees devils climbing their way into his eyeballs and ears, and like basically the devils are possessing him as he's choosing to watch porn. And I don't think I marked it down, or else I would read it. But it is, it's that dire. If you watch porn, if you masturbate, you will become possessed by a devil.
Yeah, high stakes.
Yeah, high stakes.
Okay.
Okay. Next one. If the temptation seems overpowering while you are in bed, get out of bed and go into the kitchen and fix yourself a snack, even if it is the middle of the night, and even if you are not hungry, and despite your fears of gaining weight. I swear Mormons are so afraid of gaining weight. The purpose behind this suggestion is that you get your mind onto something else. You are the subject of your thoughts, so to speak. So that's so interesting, just distract yourself, go in your kitchen, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I guess. Even if you're worried about gaining weight, so that, because gaining weight is less of a sin, I guess, than masturbation, even though neither of those things should be a sin.
Right. And also this could lead to an unhealthy relationship with food and eating disorders. I don't think it's a stretch to think that someone might take this, they might latch onto this and take it to the extreme anytime they're having those quote sinful thoughts, they turn to food. And I mean, that's just not a healthy approach either.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just encouraging people to substitute one obsessive behavior potentially with another obsessive behavior. Do you want to read number
6?
7? The Book of Mormon will save you.
Wait, we still have
number
6.
Sorry, no, we're on number 6, sorry.
Number 6, never read pornographic material. Never read about your problem. Keep it out of mind. Remember, first a thought, then an act. The thought pattern must be changed. You must not allow this problem to remain in your mind. When you accomplish that, you will soon be free, which is really silly to be like, don't think about the thing. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Like, what are you going to, of course you're going to think about it.
Very counterintuitive. Well, and this reminded me of a while back, I got this email from this person. I don't know how old he was. He seemed to be still a teenager. And he was bearing his testimony to me because he said that for a long time he had a pornography addiction and he was suicidal as a result of this pornography addiction. And then with the help of the Savior, he overcame his pornography addiction. And I think that's such a crazy example of creating the problem and selling the solution, because were it not for the church to begin with, he wouldn't have perceived that he had a quote pornography addiction. Keep in mind, for anyone watching, that pornography addiction can literally be peeking at a Victoria's Secret catalog every once in a while. And so it was interesting how he sees the church as his savior from this addiction. But I'm like, the reality is that the church is what told you have an addiction to begin with, and this is you're misinterpreting the actual core problem here, which is that the church is teaching you that you're evil.
Yeah, I think when you hypersexualize something, especially just your own naked body, you start to pervert normal things, like the normal feeling of being horny, for example, as a teenager, when your hormones are just off the charts. And so when you repress something, and we have so many examples, especially on our channel in these interviews, when you tell someone you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, it creates this distorted, oh, I got to do it. Like you want to rebel. And so when you do that to kids and not talk to them about healthy sex or healthy boundaries or a healthy relationship with your body, you're just distorting things that shouldn't be an issue in the first place. And we've said this already, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that fact.
Yeah, and I know somebody said that they don't have proof this is live. This is live because I saw your comment. I promise we didn't pre-record this and pretend.
Oh,
well, this conversation is live, which is a funny thing to be like, prove it. So here we are. I promise we are.
Do you
currently...
want to go through any comments while we're here, while they are coming in?
I saw someone said a joke that was like, it was a funny like masturbation eating slang term, but I forgot what. Master munching.
Oh my gosh.
That made me laugh.
Also, I know I forgot to tell you this earlier. You can star things as you see them scroll by, and then it'll save it in a separate column to make it easier for you to go back later.
Good to know.
If you want to do that moving forward. You want to go to the next one? Number 7?
Yeah, sure. The Book of Mormon will solve it all. I even have my handy dandy Book of Mormon right here so that I can make sure I never masturbate. It says, put wholesome thoughts into your mind at all times. Read good books like church books, scriptures, sermons of the brethren. Make a daily habit of reading at least one chapter of scripture, preferably from the 4 Gospels in the New Testament, or the Book of Mormon. The 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, above anything else in the Bible, can be helpful because of their uplifting qualities.
Uplifting, so, more like mind numbing.
I know.
Nothing more buzzkill than the bipolar.
You're so bored you won't want to masturbate anymore. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Did you ever do this, Shalise, where like if you're going through a hard time, you open the Book of Mormon randomly and point to a verse and then you read it and try to connect it to yourself?
The amount of big life decisions that I've made by doing the open and point thing, I was that girl. That was me.
Also, thank you to My Unfinished Journey for supporting the live. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I seriously did that so many times. That was like my go-to. And the number of times you open it, like, and it just says, and it came to pass, they exchanged 4 nickels for $1 or something. And you're like, it's often very unhelpful.
Yes. Speaking of, pray about it.
So helpful.
Number 8.
Do you want to read it or you want me to read it?
I'll read it. Pray. But when you pray, don't pray about your problem because that'll make you think about it. So don't pray about it. Just pray for understanding, pray for faith, pray for the missionaries, general authorities, your friends, your families, but keep the problem out of your mind. Again, remember not to think about it. So, and then it says, don't even mention your problem, not even to your friends, not in conversation, not in your prayers. Keep it out of your mind, out of sight, out of mind, out of pants. I added that last part.
I feel like the whole like you can't talk about it thing is it's such a way to promote shame. It's just such a strong message that you should be so ashamed of this problem that you should never open your mouth and talk about it, which I think that, you know, you have all this level of demonization, as we're going to get to in the miracle of forgiveness. A prophet said that, you know, and in the Book of Mormon, it says that adultery is the sin next to murder. So you're really indoctrinated in this church to believe that sexual sin is next to murder. That's how severe it is. And it just makes it, I think, so that when you're also told you shouldn't ever even talk about this problem, I think it really, I mean, I have heard stories of people, you know, attempting or feeling like they should attempt to kill themselves because of this type of messaging and feeling like, I mean, like I already said, that young man said he was feeling like he should kill himself because he had a pornography addiction. So I feel like it is kind of so sad and crazy to see them say like, you should never even talk about this because the level of shame and shaming is so severe.
Yeah, I agree. And except for your bishop. You have to talk to your bishop. In fact, it was in here. I don't remember where it was, but it was like, we need to set up a plan. And we're about to get into all the ways that if you currently do masturbate, these are all the things that are going to help you stop and help you get on the right track, which are even more like, whew. But it started with talking about setting up a plan with your bishop and regularly speaking to them about it to make sure you're staying on track. I mean, how mortifying, I think is the right word. As a teenager, I remember confessing sexual sins to my bishop as a teenage girl, and it was mortifying. I can't imagine going in weekly to talk about the things that I did to myself, which, by the way, as a teen, I didn't even know I could because they never include women in these conversations. I didn't know that
Yeah.
was a thing that I had to potentially deal with. I didn't even know that I could do it. So thankfully, that was not on the docket for me. I know it is for some women and girls, but I was just so unaware because they never include women in the discussions.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like women end up getting roped in because maybe they'll hear talks like this and then they'll be like, is that what I'm doing? And then they'll still learn to feel shame about it, but it's definitely not. We have talked about in previous collaborations together. There's a pamphlet called "To Young Men Only," and its nickname is the Little Factories pamphlet because it's this speech that was given, this talk that was given about how your body has a little factory and it will produce a substance. And if you do not do anything to the little factory, it will go about its normal business.
Yeah.
But if you touch your little it's full of euphemisms basically. But I do feel like the title of that is literally "To Young Men Only," and
Yeah.
which is basically saying girls don't do this.
Mm-hmm. So also, funny you mentioned that. That's the exact spot that we're at in this document. Is it talks about the process of making sperm. And it says, and by the way, I called a friend of mine who is a doctor, a male doctor, and I was like, let's get to the bottom of this. How much of this is true? So in this document, it talks about the whole process of how when you empty the balls, essentially, your body's going to fill them back up. And that's just how it works. However, they frame it in such a way that the more you ramp up production, you're never indefinitely, it's going to be ramped up and you're never going to be able to stop it. So just don't even start in the first place, or you will just be in this cycle of, I got to masturbate, I got to masturbate, I got to masturbate, I got to masturbate. And so they put a lot of fear around your body and what your body is going to do to you if you masturbate even once. So I asked my friend, I was like, okay, is this true? And he's like, well, yeah, when you empty your balls, they're going to fill back up, but that's not the reason that you want to masturbate. There's no biological connection that makes you want to do it. It's your psychological synapses and the things that you're perceiving around you. It has to do with your hormones. It has to do with things that you're looking at. It doesn't have to do with the fact that it needs to be released, because we know wet dreams are a thing, obviously, and we're going to get into that. But the whole point is, he's like, yeah, there is truth to that, but that's not what makes someone want to masturbate. That's a separate thing.
That's so interesting. It's very similar to the language of addiction, where it's like not even once. If you have a sip of alcohol, you'll become an alcoholic. If you drink one sip of coffee, you'll become addicted to coffee. And it's basically taking the language of addiction and just applying it to masturbation, where if you masturbate once, then the next day you'll do it twice, and then 4 times, and soon you won't leave your bed, I guess, because you physically will not be able to control the urge.
Well, is it a good time to talk about the realities of that from a doctor's perspective and what I was researching?
Yeah, go ahead and read that link you sent me.
Yeah. So, and I asked him about that too. I was like, what is the reality of this? And he was like, you know what? Yes, people can have an unhealthy connection to it if they are doing it over and over and over and over again because of the feel-good hormones that are naturally released, the serotonin, the dopamine, and I had the other one written down, but I forgot what it was, which basically is like a high. It feels good when you do that. And just like anything, you can get addicted to that feeling, but that doesn't mean that masturbation in itself is actually an addictive substance like drugs, for example. So people can get in the habit, just like people can get in the habit of binge eating, but that doesn't necessarily mean that food is bad and you should avoid it. It just means understanding the ways in which you perceive it and understanding the ways in which you are able to control your moderation. So I
Mm.
was doing some research. I'm like, let's see what the doctors say about it. Because, like I said, I did that interview with Natasha Helfer. She was saying masturbation is a normative practice. If you choose to engage in it, it can be healthy. And so I was like, okay, let's look this up. So, benefits can relieve built up stress, sleep better, boost mood, prevent anxiety and depression, can help you relax. Pleasure and enjoyment, relieve cramps. Let me tell you, that's true. Release sexual tension, improve self esteem, have better sex, better understand your wants and needs. So, this is from healthline.com, by the way. Masturbation and prostate cancer talks about how it can help prevent cancer, masturbation during pregnancy, relieve some stress there. Side effects of masturbation. So, we're going to cover everything. So, masturbation and guilt. Some people may feel guilty about it because of cultural, spiritual, or religious beliefs. So, they acknowledge that that could be a case for people. Okay, here's the addiction part. It says some people can develop an addiction to masturbation, or what some call, quote, sex addiction. However, this term is not recognized by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders and is not considered by some to be a true addiction. And they go on to talk about how you may be masturbating too much if you miss work, if you miss chores, if it's affecting your sex life. But that's also not the norm. That's not the standard for anyone who might do it. Myths are infertility, dehydration, hormonal imbalances, decreased sperm count, vision loss, acne, hairy palms. What? Erectile dysfunction and low libido. So they talk about all of that. I feel like this is a good enough description. We'll probably go over this a little bit on my channel too, because I think it's important conversation for people to understand the actual statistics, the actual research behind it, not just taking a religious organization's word for it.
Yeah, I think it's really common to view all of sexuality through a lens of your cultural indoctrination or whatever you were raised with growing up. And so for someone like me or anyone coming out of the Mormon tradition, all of what you know is going to be based in your religious teaching around the subject. So it's one of the weirdest parts of leaving religion, in my opinion, is going and researching some of the claims that were just offhandedly spouted growing up in your church, whether it's fossils. I forget, I think I was actually watching your interview with I forget where I saw it, but basically they were taught, and at BYU, that the reason we have fossils, which just is a common understanding of fossils from a Christian perspective, is that there were dinosaurs on other planets, and then those planets hit into this planet, and so we're finding the remains of dinosaurs on other planets, but there were never dinosaurs walking on Earth. Mm-hmm. So it's so crazy to grow up in a world where these types of things are just just passed off as fact. And mm-hmm. nobody in the in group is like, I don't know if that's true. And then when you leave religion and you're like, let me actually Google the health risks of masturbation. For the first time in my life, I will actually look at studies done by actual institutions on this. And it is weird and crazy to realize how much misinformation you essentially were fed as a kid and growing up in a religion where a lot of it is just completely inaccurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Or it's outdated. So it may have been information that at the time was seen as acceptable information around a certain topic, but as science has progressed and as studies have been done, it's outdated and no longer safe to be espousing that information, which is why we always have to be vigilant in doing our own research. If something feels weird, you can look into it and don't take our word for it. Go research it yourself.
Yeah, it's really nice to leave a religion and finally just feel like you can access whatever information you want. Because, I mean, in the church, you're really, truly told you should only be reading these things. When it's listing uplifting things to read, it's not like read your favorite novel, it's read the scriptures. And like missionaries can only read church-approved material. So even just understanding that access into information is a sin, seeking out certain information is a sin, is very nice to finally say, I don't believe that that's true anymore.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So what happens, Alyssa, if you already have a quote addiction and you need to stop? How do we stop?
Should I read the page? Should I read the whole page about little factories?
You want to read the little factory? Well,
Or
there is,
or I could go to the suggestions.
yeah, the suggestions, because we have how many? Geez, there are 19, nope, 21 suggestions on how to stop. And at some point, we have like 10 more minutes here, and then we'll jump over to our channel to keep going.
Okay, we'll just go through these. These are pretty quick. So we already did pray daily, pray all the time. Number 2, follow a program of vigorous daily exercise. They release emotional tension and depression. Double your physical activity when you feel stress increasing. So if you don't want to masturbate, just exercise all the time.
Well, this is a funny one because I interviewed someone who grew up in Saudi Arabia, and the whole interview was based around his scrupulosity around sex because, again, masturbation in Islam was not allowed where he was. Well, I think it is across the board, but he grew up in Saudi Arabia where all the rules were extremely strict. He wasn't even allowed to look at a woman, look at her eyes, handshakes, things like that. And so we talk about the ways in which he was trying to work through all of this. He actually, his parents, I don't know if I should say this because we're on your channel. There were severe consequences for him even being caught texting a girl. So he said one of the things that he would do is exercise a lot because that's what they told him. If you have these urges, just go exercise. And he's like, but that made the problem worse because not only did I have more testosterone, I was hotter. I was more attractive to these women. And so it actually didn't help at all.
Oh man, yeah, I mean, I guess at least you get fit, but it's all out of a place of self-loathing.
Yeah.
Number 3 is when the temptation to masturbate is strong. This was another one I used in the thumbnail because it's kind of hilarious. When the temptation to masturbate is strong, yell stop to those thoughts as loudly as you can in your mind, and then recite a pre-chosen scripture or sing an inspirational hymn. So I'm just imagining you're just at home and your family's at home, and suddenly in the other room you hear your husband yell, "Stop!" Like, just scream stop. And you run in the room and you're like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Nothing."
Oh,
I just like am imagining this in real context of you just suddenly hear someone in another room start yelling stop, and then you're like, "What? Are you in danger?" And they're like, "I am in spiritual danger."
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Imagine the emotional turmoil and mental turmoil you would have to be in to get to the point where your head is spinning so much with these thoughts that you literally have to yell to get them out of your head. Because again, we're not even afraid of our own bodies. Now we're afraid of our minds. You can't even think about the subject. If you're thinking about it, then you're losing the battle. So what a scary place to be in, especially when, again, these behaviors are normal and natural, and now you are demonizing yourself for being human.
Yeah, it's just so, I mean, it really is taking just something that is normal and obviously should be done in private and is, it's up to each, it's something that is part of the human experience as part of our biology. And instead of just keeping it private and allowing people to grow up naturally and become adults and be, real adults and not have all of these weird hangups around purity culture, instead we have advice like this, which is to yell stop if you have any temptation. And it is truly absurd.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think you have a couple super chats in your start column. You can click them and put them on the screen if you want to.
How do I
just click, hover over it, and then it should give you like a plus sign or something, or an add. There you go.
Okay. Does it stay or does it?
It stays until you click another one, or you could hover over the same one and click it and it'll go away.
Okay, thank you. Oh my God, thank you to them, and thank you to Bachelor Junior. Keep up the good work, girls. Thank you everybody for the super chats. That is I really appreciate it, and thank you for the support. I've loved seeing all of the sex jokes come in.
Yeah. Do you want to go through any of the comments before we head over to our channel? Or is there any of it?
I know we had some some good questions. The LDS church helped me with porn too. I'm currently inactive in the church. I know some people, I think we had some people who were kind of saying, like, don't masturbate, it's bad for you. So we did kind of already speak to that. Do your own research on that one. We are not doctors or scientists, but we're literate, so we can read. So that's my response to that.
Oh my
Maybe we
gosh,
can
that's my
read
favorite.
one more, and then we'll switch over to your channel.
Okay.
And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe once we head over to Cults to Consciousness as well.
Yes. Okay.
Let's see. We just finished the yell stop. I was going to yell stop on the live. Oh, let's celebrate. We have 666 viewers.
That's amazing.
Satan has now blessed us.
Entered the chat.
Yeah. Nobody leave and nobody join. Let's keep it there. I was gonna yell stop while we were on the live, but I will save your ears from me yelling stop into the microphone.
Okay.
Do you want to read one more?
Sure. Set goals of abstinence. Begin with a day, then a week, a month, a year, and finally commit to never doing it again. Until you commit to yourself, never again, you will always be open to temptation. Let's just talk about the unrealistic standards of that. I mean, that's the thing with the Mormon church. I've talked about this before. I left not realizing that I was put out into the world with black and white thinking, and it's been very hard to break. I still deal with it to this day, where if I'm on a diet, if I'm on an exercise program, I'm all in. I'm going hard. If I miss one day, it's over. I messed up. I can't get back on. It's like impossible for me to start again. And I realize it's because of this all or nothing mentality. There's never any room for gray zone. There's never any room for moderation. And it's so hard to get out of that headspace.
Yeah, it's so demoralizing to promise yourself, I'm never going to eat sugar again, or I'm never going to, I'm never going to miss a single day of exercising, or I'm never going to masturbate ever again. And then when you inevitably are human and make a mistake or do a human thing, it feels 10 times worse than had you never made that resolution to begin with. Or just promise yourself, I'm going to try to do better, because the all or nothing thinking really leads to it's, when you do fail, it feels so much worse and so much more like, I hate myself, I'm a failure, than had you just been more reasonable to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And just the intense guilt and shame, again, over something that is a normative thing for humans to engage in. I mean, honestly, when I was talking to Natasha, they've seen, I don't know if you could call it a fetus. I don't know the stages in pregnancy, but they've seen ultrasounds of babies doing it to themselves because it is a natural thing, and children do it too because it feels good, and it's just exploring your body. And so to demonize it in such a really, really hard way, especially to young kids when their hormones are going crazy, they already feel like crap. They don't know, their bodies are changing, they feel weird, they have these new feelings, their emotions are going wild, and then to say you're wrong for that, it creates a lot of dysfunction, even just in how you view yourself as a human being. So yeah, I think it is damaging. I think it's very damaging.
Yeah. Well, with that, we're going to switch over to Shalisa's channel. If you're already on the live, you don't have to do anything. Just sit tight. We're going to be going over a little bit more of the miracle of forgiveness. We're going to finish this crazy document. So give us one moment to switch over.
All right, guys. See you over there.